Blah. Y'all already know what it is. Your boy Yaakov with it too. The outlet to reality, the holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago. What up? This is the place where you want to hide from your drama or maybe hide from your baby mama. Aha, just kidding. But anyways, fans, thank you for staying tuned. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching. And today we have a very special guest who I consider one of my closest friends, mentor. Give it up for Ninveh. What's up, girl?
Hi, how are you?
Very good, very good. I'm excited that you're here.
Me too, me too.
So look, everybody, I want to share a little bit about Ninveh. This is amazing. You don't know how hard it is to get her. So pretty much our Rabbi Weinsteiger from Chicago, he actually told me, I think there's somebody that I want you to meet who will help you grow spiritually, mentally, everything. I said, okay, all right. So there was a Shabbat, I was invited to, and Ninveh was there, and she basically took me around to different shuls, and it was so cool because I was young. I was about 12, 11 that I knew Ninveh, so I was a little cat trying to be cool, and and so she's taking me to different shuls, and I never forget because I was learning Hebrew and Ninveh already knew how to read, so she was teaching me along the way. And I love that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't make so many connections in the community. Like when you took me to, Rabbi Baraka's shul, Rabbi Azus, who was one of I feel like the only rabbi that spoke Ladino in Chicago, to be honest.
Yeah, that's about right.
Right?
Yeah, no,
So
you're right. You're not wrong.
So it was so cool because if built that friendship, I felt like I could be myself, and I did feel like I was growing. So I'm always thankful, Ninveh. And what about you? Any memories you could think of?
Oh, it's funny because I always used to tease you because you were very quiet, which made sense because you were like a baby. And I always used to tease you like, man, you talk too much. And now you're doing this podcast for a living. And I'm like, well, I guess you made a living out of it. So, but yeah, I just remember you being like this very quiet, shy kid, but you were really, really into learning. And we didn't know. I mean, I think you also felt like you weren't sure where you were going, but you were willing to go for the ride. And we were like, okay, let's do this and see where it takes us. So, yeah, I just remember having a good time with you when you were little. But
Oh,
you were really like 12? I thought you were like 13, 14.
well, I remember like you knew me for a long time, like almost
Yeah.
my whole youth. And then in college, we, you know, we didn't spend so much time together. You were busy, you got married,
Yeah.
and then I worked with your sister. What a small world.
That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. That's right. You and I have crossed paths in so many different ways. You're right. I didn't realize. I totally forgot. My sister mentioned you, and I was like, I know this kid. I know this kid.
Right? Oh
That's
man.
right.
And I gotta say too, what one thing is crazy that for people that don't know, Ninveh and I, we went to the same high school and the same kung fu school with Sifu Cardona.
Yeah. Although I have to say, my high school was a girls' school at the time. When it stopped being a girls' school, then they just let you in. No, I'm just kidding, but but
That's
yeah,
that.
no, it's pretty cool how we ended up going to the same location. Even though it changed, it was still the same spot. And like again, the crosses paths crossing.
Right. Oh man, that's crazy. And Niva, I gotta ask you because you one of my, like, honestly, I've always told people, now I live in Vegas. I always mention you in my conversation how you have been one of the smartest spiritual people that I know that I consider wise. And I met your husband a few times when I was young and when I got older. And I remember one time when I felt strong because I got my black belt. And Moshe was like, man, look, I'm gonna tell you, you don't know Krav Maga. I'm gonna show you some moves. I don't think you're ready. And so we wrestled a little bit in the living room, and he kicked my butt. It's just so funny. And I was like, man, I thought all these techniques worked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. We were at his parents' house. This is when we were still dating.
Yeah,
And you both were young and like guy like as young guys, you guys think you're the strongest in the world. So both of you are like, oh really? You think you know something? Okay, let's try it. And then both of you wrestled, and I was like, okay, I'll just sit here with my book. Like, and his mom walks in, like, what's going on in here?
right. Oh
Yeah, yeah.
man, it's too
He's
fun.
always looking for an opportunity to wrestle that guy, I swear.
Right now, I do want to ask. I'm always curious because I know you're a better storyteller. How did you meet Moshe? Like, how did you knew like this guy is different? Like, I'm gonna end up marrying this guy. Like, how did
Oh,
who introduced you? Who like?
so he and I met when we were both 16. We're the same age. And that was before I was even anywhere close to starting a conversion process to Judaism. And we met in a playground that's in our neighborhood. We both lived in West Rogers Park of Chicago here. It's an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. And on a Saturday when it was Shabbat and all the people are out and about with their kids in the park, I also went to the park with my cousins and my sisters because, nice weather, go out and enjoy it, right? And I especially loved going to the park because I got to be around Jews. I really wanted to be around Jews. So, and it was there that I met my husband. And according to him, he said the second he saw me, he was like blown away. And I don't get it. I don't get it because I was not cute when I was 16. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll take what I can get. No, and um, and so I remember at one point he was sitting near me and he comes up to me and says, hey, Ninveh, do you want a piece of chocolate? And I was like, what kind of chocolate? And he goes, oh, it's a Hershey's Kiss. I'm like, no, I don't like that. And I go, wait, how do you know my name? And,
Wow.
and, like, that's the funny joke is that like everyone was says to me, so you didn't ask that question first. You were more concerned about the chocolate. I was like, yeah, food is a part of my heart. Um, but he didn't want to tell me at that time how he got my name. And now it's been so long. He says he forgot how he got my name. But I think he just might have heard somebody yelling my name when I was at the park because I wasn't alone. I was with my family and so it's possible he heard them saying my name. But from then on, I was like, this kid's a total weirdo and a dork. And I love those people. So let's be friends. Let's do this. And I didn't know if I decided he was the one then because we were 16. Like, who knows what's going to happen a week from then. But I always knew I was always the kind of person that I never dated up until that point. And I knew lots of friends that did date multiple people at that point. And for me, it was like, okay, people, they'll do what they do. But I'm not that kind of person. I'm just dating for fun. I'm going to date and be serious about it. And if it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't go somewhere, we gave it a shot. And that's what I told Moshe too when we started officially dating. I said, listen, I don't know where this relationship is going, especially since I'm not Jewish yet. And I don't know when I'd be Jewish. But if you're willing to give this a shot, I'll give it a shot. And if you think it's too much and you want to go our separate ways, I respect that. And he agreed to it. And it all worked out. I ended up, converting by the time I was 20 and then he and I got married when we were 24. So he stuck it out.
Wow. And I ain't gonna lie, ladies out there, people, my girl Ninva, she picked a really handsome guy. All
Ah!
strong, nice haircut. I remember one thing you used to say to me. You're like, Moshe, you need to have your hair cut short, like a nice fade, because I don't like it when it's long. And I remember that like yesterday. I was like, dang, look at Ninva. She already got regulations. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that's right. That's right. I have it's funny you say that because my son, he's 9 now. Like 2 years ago, he says to me, Mommy, did you marry Abba for his muscles? And I was like, oh, damn, he's on to me. Like,
Oh man,
I
that's
was like,
too
oh no,
funny.
you're right. But yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Look how time goes so fast. And we actually got to rekindle right before I moved to Vegas with you, your husband, your kids, Mike Doolin. Mike Doolin, one of the greatest friends I've ever had till this day as well. Great chef, by the way. And we went to the Renaissance, remember in Wisconsin?
Yes, I was not expecting you there. I just like went with I was told by his son David, "Oh yeah, my parents are coming." I'm like, "Okay." And then they show up with you, and I'm like, "What, David?" Ah! Anyway, my
Oh
other
man.
David.
Right. You know what was so funny is that when I saw you, I wanted to give you a big hug, right? And for people that don't know, in the Orthodox world, women and men cannot hug, only spouses. And so me and Ninveh were like, we
Yeah, right.
can't, you know,
Like, like just squeezing the air around each other, like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you."
right. And then you
I
said,
remember we took a selfie and I sent it to my sister. I was like, "Look who I'm hanging out with."
right. And the funny thing, you said, Moshe, go give David a big hug for me. And it was like a real tight hug. And I was
That's
like,
right.
that's
That's
much
right.
love, much love.
Yeah, yes, yes. I trust him to do that. He's very good with hugs.
Right? Oh man. And was that your first time going to the Renaissance for in
Yeah,
Wisconsin?
that was my first time. That was my
Wow.
first time there, and I run into you. My God.
And that was a lot of years we haven't seen each other.
Yeah, that was the year before the pandemic, I
Yeah.
think.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it was 2019, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
It's
life before Corona.
I know it's so crazy. Pandemic definitely I feel like for the first time in history, when everyone got affected through the pandemic, COVID, I feel like it's the first time people felt equal. Because it doesn't matter if
Mm.
you're rich or poor, you can still get sick.
Yeah, just goes to show you how germs don't discriminate.
Right? That's
It's
true.
funny you say that because I had a friend who passed, not from Corona, it was just something else. I had a friend who passed, and the rabbi who gave the eulogy at his funeral was saying how, like, we all felt a sense of guilt regarding this friend because we all stayed away from each other because of Corona. And we felt bad that we didn't all, for those of us who didn't get to see him often, we felt terrible because we were like, oh no, we didn't see him so much when he was alive. And now he's gone. And that's our chance. That was our opportunity, it was gone. And he was talking about how COVID separated us. And he was talking about how it's interesting how the word COVID is very close to the word for kavod in Hebrew, which means respect. And he's like, it's possible that maybe this all happened because we have respect for each other. Now that we're forced to be away from each other, we're starting to appreciate what we mean to each other. And it's just, and maybe that's to reinstill the respect we have for each other. I was like, that, wow,
Ooh,
that's wild. Maybe it sucks that we went through it, but maybe that's what we needed to learn. I don't know.
yeah.
It's very
Ooh,
wild.
that's deep. That's deep.
Mm, mm. Yeah,
Wow, wow, Niva. And Niva, if you could share a little bit about your background is very interesting, how you're Assyrian, right?
yeah, yep,
And it's crazy for people that don't know it. Ninva's background, it's one of the first people in the Middle East to actually start the first laws, like the Hammurabi's Code. You guys go way back, like ancient times. Even the
yep,
language is the modern day Aramaic.
right.
So, I mean, Nimba, tell us a little bit because honestly, you're my first Assyrian Jew to be on the podcast. So it's cool. I mean, I've had
Breaking
Persian.
records here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The lights are shaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
The lights are shaking.
yeah. Oh, so yeah. So like you said, I am Assyrian, not Syrian for anybody who is not hearing me right. But Assyrian, the ancient Assyrian people. They're the ones took who helped to destroy the first temple and took 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel and lost them. And and you're right, and our language is related to Aramaic. Right now, it would be classified as like Neo-Aramaic, but still same concept. It's coming from the same place. So I grew up speaking Aramaic. I grew up speaking Assyrian. I am Assyrian, and for the most part, most Assyrians are Christian. It's their own church, the Assyrian church, and there's a lot of pride with it. And because the Assyrians have always prided themselves as being the first nation to be Christian, even before the Romans, you know. And um, and on top of that, when the Assyrian Empire crumbled and the people spread and other countries came and other governments and dynasties and this and that and the other thing, and most Assyrians come from Iraq, and Iraq, as you know, is not a safe place to live. And the Assyrian people were very much persecuted, one for not being Arab and two for not being Muslim. So with their Christian pride came that, like, oh, they tried to kill us, so that's why we stay Christian, because they tried to kill us. But so it's like the devotion sometimes to the faith is related to the trauma, which is kind of tragic. And so I grew up that way. I mean, my family, I don't know a lot of Assyrians who are religious. I mean, they're proud to be Christian, but they're not religious. And that's how I grew up too. Like, be proud you're Christian, but we never went to church. Like, maybe we went to church for Christmas and Easter, and that's it. Never fasted, never prayed, never did any of that stuff. Wore a cross all the time, but that was all. And that was pretty much as my religion went. So at some point, my parents decided that, hey, for high school, you're going to go to a Catholic high school. I'm like, why? That makes no sense. We're not Catholic and we're not religious. Why? No one else in my family did that. All of us went to public school. Prior to high school, I was in public school, you know, K through 8 public school. And I thought I was going to go to a public high school. And then they're telling me, like, you're going to a Catholic school. I'm like, what? You sure about that? And so, did you go to Lane Tech, David?
No. I went to Northtown, which your
Northtown.
high
That's
school
right. Yeah,
turned
yeah, yeah. I was
into.
wondering if you ever went to Lane Tech before, but okay, never mind. I just want to check, make sure my brain is clear. Anyway, so they put me in a Catholic high school, and that was a trip and a half. It was at that point when I entered high school, I had already decided I wanted to be Jewish. And so the idea of being surrounded by all things Catholic was really jarring for me. It was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to be around all that every day for 4 years. I will say this, at the end of it all, at the end of my whole high school experience, I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time in Catholic high school. I made great friends. I had great teachers. They really did prepare me for the world when I went to college. And I have to say, I'm grateful for the experience. As much as it was uncomfortable at times, I'm grateful for that spiritual experience, because that's where I learned more about Christianity than I ever had in my life. So that gave me the opportunity to kind of like reassess, do I really want to still be Jewish, or do I want to stay Christian and, you know, do whatever? So I learned more about it. And on top of that, Catholics especially, they love to do this thing where they like to take the Torah and say, oh, this story is actually a foreshadowing of Jesus. And this verse is actually a foreshadowing of Jesus. And, you know, like they like to show that Jesus has always been on his way, kind of thing, in the Torah. And that experience was, it was frustrating, because I was like, no, there's no way. Am I wrong? Am I possibly wrong? Is that true? And that led me to do more research into the Bible and into the Catholic arguments. And that led me to discover that they were incorrect in so many ways. And it only helped to reinforce my decision to continue with Judaism. So it was a weird experience. It was uncomfortable at times, but I look back on it and I think I'm so glad I went through that. I don't know where I'd be intellectually with my faith if I hadn't gone through that. So there's that. What am I missing?
No, that's beautiful. It's very beautiful. It shows that, one thing I wanted to point out is that it shows that you did your homework, you research, and you find it yourself, these things. And also what is interesting, when you went to high school, we had the same dean, Mr. Ryan. It was the same one.
I forgot about him. That's right.
Yeah,
We
and
did have the same dean. That's
right.
right. That's right. He was great. He
Oh
was on
yeah.
top of it. You couldn't get anything past him.
Oh no, he's quick, and it's crazy. Um, in high school, I was the only like Jewish Latino in the school. There was a few Orthodox like students, and then there was like the teachers. Most of them were Jewish. And one time I got detention, and my first one, and he said, "Look, you got to stay for Saturday." And I said, "But yo, Mr. Ryan, I have to go to Shabbat. Like I gotta go to the synagogue. I'm missing it just to sit down and look at you." You know what I'm saying? And he started
Isn't that
laughing.
isn't that enough for you, man? Like, I don't-
Right. He's like, look, I'll let you do, I'll let you stay for only 30 minutes and then you can go to service. I said, thank you, Mr. Ryan. I appreciate that. So I still had to serve my detention that one time, and I never again was late for a class. You see?
Yeah. Oh man, I totally forgot about that. Oh
Right.
my God,
Oh
that's
man.
awesome.
It's crazy. It's crazy how we've all had a journey, together. And
Sure.
I can't forget too, also, like, if I'm not mistaken, then but you had two roommates, right? Living with you when you were young.
Yeah, when you first met me, yeah, I had two roommates. Yeah,
It was
that's correct.
Lauren, and who was the other
Laura,
one? Laura.
Laura and Batya.
Batia. I never got to really see her, like maybe once, just to
Yeah, yeah,
grab something.
she was in and out. But it's
Right.
funny because all three of us were in the conversion process. So we were all converts, all my roommates.
Whoa, it's
It just worked
crazy.
out that way. We weren't trying to look for each other. It just happened. Someone needed a roommate. I needed a roommate. Let's make it happen. And
Wow.
Laura, she ended up being my bestie. There was one point where we moved out of that first apartment we had together into a second one. Batya moved out and started doing her own thing. So then it was just me and Laura for several years, and we ended up becoming like best friends from that experience. And I still consider her my best friend. And because of her, she got me into kung fu. And then that's how I pulled you into kung fu. And I was like, you gotta come. We got our teacher is also a Latino Jew. Come on, let's go. Like, and so you and I got to be kung fu siblings. And Laura, what's really funny is when she became my kung fu teacher, I said to her, it's weird that there was a time in our lives that you and I were equals, and now you're my superior. I'm okay with that. I just think it's weird that we were equals one time.
Oh man, it's so
And
funny.
I still call her Sifu to this day, even though I haven't taken a class in Kung Fu with anybody in a long time. She's still my Sifu. So,
Wow, that's beautiful. Man, it's crazy how time. I'm gonna tell you something. So I had a long time ago, I was sparring, right? And it was time for me to spar with the black belts. And Laura was my next competitor. And I said, man, I don't think I'm ready to fight. One kick, bam, I was on the floor. You know what I'm saying? I was on
she's
the floor.
got she's got powerful kicks, man. I remember I was helping her just practice with her kicks, and I just had to hold that big old bag that covered my whole body, and I was like bracing myself, and like I was like in a sideways stance and everything. No matter how much I try to prep my body to withstand it, she knocked me down with one kick. She's like, if you're gonna keep falling every time, it's gonna take forever. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
No, but she was strong. I
She
remember
was.
one time I had a sparring match, and I fought some guy in the tournament, and I was all bruised in my leg and my arm. And I went to your house, and Laura was there, and Laura was like, look, I have this thing, because at that time you were a pharmacist.
I was a pharmacy tech,
Tech,
not a
tech.
pharmacist.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
sorry, sorry. I'm sorry. I was
Yeah,
close.
no, I ain't no doctor. Don't start calling me for advice. That's for sure.
I was close. I was close. And she gave me this thing that I don't know if you remember. It was called Chinese liniment, which is
Yeah,
oil that you put in your body when you
yeah.
get hurt.
Deep dive jowl.
Yeah, yeah,
That
you
one.
got it.
That's the one. That's good stuff.
Man, that thing works. Like I put it in my arm. She's like, just rub it like really hard, let the blood flow. And the next day I didn't have the bruise no more.
Yep, it's good stuff. I used it for when I sprained my what's it called, that ligament in my knee behind there. I didn't like break it or anything, but I sprained it. It hurt like mm. And I used that, and in a few days' time, it was gone. I was like, thank God, thank you God for Chinese medicine.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, look, Denver, one of my last questions I want to ask you, right? Is what from this portion of this week, what did you take out of it that you felt moved with, maybe that you heard at the shear at the shul, something that caught your eye that was very inspiration.
Um, this week's parsha was Kaisar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I'm not, my brain ain't what it used to be. Um, it was interesting because we were talking about the whole concept of is Ishmael Abraham's son? Like, is he actually Abraham's son? And it's very interesting because in my mind, it's like, yeah, that's his dad. Biologically speaking, that's his son. Of course it is. I don't know why that's even a question. But a lot of people ask that question because they're like, well, he became the father of the Arabs, and the Arabs gave rise to Islam, and now it's a whole other religion that Ishmael created, and it's not with the Torah and things like that. And I was like, yeah, but that's still his kid. And I just started thinking about it some more, and I realized that some people they get hung up about it because they really want just Yitzhak to be Abraham's son, like they just because that's our predecessor, that's our ancestor. We come from him directly. Like we don't come through Ishmael to Abraham, we go through Yitzhak. So I started thinking like, okay, you know what it is? I understand people's hangups about Ishmael because he's described in Torah commentary as having been a very rebellious kid. He was not nice to Yitzchak. He was maybe even trying to kill him, definitely trying to harm him in some way. And a lot of but what people fail to also discuss about Ishmael is that he also did teshuvah. He repented when he got older. At some point in his life, he got it together and made amends. And we know this because when Abraham went to take Yitzchak for the whole big sacrifice scene, Ishmael was with him. So how was it, like if Ishmael was truly kicked out, never to be heard from again, why is he with Abraham now for this really important event, in our religion? And then secondly, when Abraham died, it's recorded that Yitzchak and Ishmael buried him together. If they couldn't get along, they wouldn't be doing that. And so that just goes to show you how he did do teshuvah, he did change as a person. So now here's the next question. If that's the case, why isn't he also considered as like one of the fathers of Jews? Like why wasn't he in the same league as Yitzchak? And I think that goes to show that even though he did teshuvah, he decided he wasn't going to do this mission. And that's okay. And that's okay. It's a shame he didn't, but that was his choice. And I think that's what we need to learn from the story of Ishmael is that like it's sometimes it's not enough to feel a certain way. If you want something, you've got to really want it. And how do I say this? It's like if we want the Torah to be part of our lives, it's not enough to just sit there and be like, oh, I like it. It's nice. It's great. And we appreciate the support. We do as Jews. We appreciate the support. But we also feel like if you really are serious about living this life, then you take it on. You do it. And then hopefully the generations after you also do it. But it's got to start with you. And so I think that's the lesson we can learn from Ishmael. Do teshuvah, it's never too late. You can repair almost anything. And and really, really mean it. Like really like take it on and transform yourself.
Ooh, that was
That's what
deep.
I say. That's the thoughts I had. I don't know how kosher it is. I don't know how well supported it is, but those are the thoughts I had this week.
I love it. I love it. I do want to share, two things. So when Hagar took Ishmael away and basically Avraham said, you have to leave,
Mm,
the angel came and said, you will have a great nation, your son.
that's
And
right.
so the angel blessed, Ishmael's generation. And when they did leave later on the story to Egypt, there's a midrash that says that when Abraham went to go visit Ishmael, a woman answered, opened the door, and he was like, "Oh, I'm here to see my son. Is he almost here?" And she's like, "No, he's working all this week." And so she didn't offer him she didn't show no hospitality, no food, nothing. And he said to her, I don't think you're for my son. Can you tell that to my son? And she kicked him out. And so Avram goes back a second time and meets a different woman. He's like, I'm here for my son. She gives him water and everything looks good. Great hospitality, everything. But she didn't believe in Hashem or pray
Right.
before the blessing for the food or anything. And so Avram says, this wife is better, but this is not for you. And so she kicks him out. He goes back one more time. And Avram says, the woman comes in, she introduced, like, hey, have a seat. Let me get you some water, some bread. And she prays before she eats and after she eats. And he said, I appreciate everything you've done for me, the hospitality, and how much faith you have in Hashem. He said, tell your son that this woman is for you and my blessings for you and my son and your kids. And when I heard that story from the Midrash, right, that even gave me like an extra light that Ishmael was taken care of spiritually by his father.
And that he was listening to his father,
Yeah.
you know, like you see it all the time, unfortunately, where grown adults have a hard time with their parents, even though the parents are trying everything to help them, because the adult is not listening to them, they're not getting the full help that they could get. And the fact that Ishmael was listening just shows you so much how his character developed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Very,
mean?
very
And
true.
also, it just really speaks to the power of parents. Like, yeah, Ishmael didn't end up being one of our predecessors. He ended up being the father of a different nation. And yet, Abraham still didn't stop caring about him. He didn't stop checking in on him. He didn't stop trying to raise him and guide him. And even even if you want to say Abraham did it only those 3 times, that's it. Look at how those 3 times impacted Ishmael, though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very important. Parents need to appreciate just how much of an impact they have on their children. Same thing with Esau. Esau was way worse. He did no teshuvah whatsoever. He did nothing of the sort. And yet, everyone agrees, all sources agree, that Esau had tremendous respect for his father. And it's precisely because his father spent time with him.
Wow.
So, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to keep Esau off a crazy path, but it still made an impression on him. It still did something. And it's it's hard as a parent to watch your kid not succeed, but it's worth trying.
That's true. That's very deep, Ninveh. So look, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. Guys, this is the outlet to reality, the holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching! And y'all know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, the outlet to reality. My TikTok is at Yaakov28, and my Snapchat is Take One Pass It. And Ninva, thank you for being here, girl. It's an honor.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.